Welcome to the Real Estate Visdom podcast, where we gather insights and wisdom from industry professionals and share it with you. I'm Vishal Kapoor, your host, and today we have a true expert in the field joining us. I'm thrilled to introduce Mark Ellison, a certified professional inspector with a wealth of experience dating back to 2006. Mark has been a guiding force for thousands of homebuyers, easing their transition into new homes with unparalleled expertise and confidence. As one of the pioneering inspectors in Ontario, Mark achieved the prestigious Master Inspector certification, showcasing his dedication to maintaining the highest standard in the industry. Not only is Mark the chair for standards and discipline at the Ontario Association of Certified Home Inspectors, but he's also the driving force behind the Home Coach Trailbrazing Inspection company in Canada. What sets them apart? Well, they go above and beyond by offering warranties that protect clients even after the inspection is done. In today's episode, Mark will share invaluable insights on what you need to know when hiring an inspector, tips for house hunting, and how a professional home inspection can be a smart investment that saves you money in the long run. Mark's commitment to professionalism and client satisfaction is truly commendable. And I can't wait for him to guide us through the nuances of home inspections. So stay tuned for a conversation that will empower you in your real estate journey. Mark Ellison, right here. Welcome, Mark.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me out here.
Good to see you after a long time.
It's been a while, hasn't it? Yeah.
I know. Like last year was better than 2 years.
Yeah. Well, it's been a crazy market in Southern Ontario, as we all know. So
I was feeling sorry for you because we didn't needed you.
Lucky I've been doing it long enough that I've got a pretty wide berth of agents that refer me. So if it wasn't for, we've lost a lot of inspectors in Ontario.
Yeah, we did.
In about the last 3 years, we've lost about 700 inspectors.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, I can imagine. And I was just mentioning one was the main, one of the major step in buying a home was home inspection.
Sure.
And people were ignoring it. And they had no choice, actually, because the market was so that if you would put the garbage can outside, it will sell. Yep. Right? That was a scenario. Sure. So nobody needed how many holes are there in garbage can, if it's going to leak or not. Yeah. Nobody was taking care of that.
Well, sometimes you have to make an assumption it's leaking.
Yeah, that's right. But at the same time, it's in my opinion, like even then, I was, if you remember, we were doing before we were listing houses, we were doing the pre-inspection for listing,
pre-listing inspection, sure.
Pre-listing inspection. Yep. And also I recommending my clients, even I know we didn't get the opportunity to, along with the offer, to do the home inspection as a condition. They were coming back and they're doing the home inspection, so they know what they have to fix and how to maintain.
Well, I think the inspection industry kind of got it backwards when they started marketing more to buyers than to sellers.
Right.
But I've always thought of it this way: if you're a seller,
yes,
you've got two ways to do it. You can either just blindly sell it,
right?
But that's blind is not good. Knowledge is power, right? So, but you think about it: you've put your house on the market, the realtor's done all that work, you finally get a buyer, you've gone through the negotiation. You feel you didn't get enough money for it. The buyer feels they spent too much. Right. Now the inspector comes in, and we always find stuff. It's just the way it is. We always find stuff.
Always going to find stuff.
And now what does the buyer want to do? Renegotiate.
Yeah.
But, if you can do that pre-listing inspection, you can avoid or certainly handle better I'll say avoid the renegotiation, but at least be in much better position to handle it if it does come up with a buyer's inspection.
For sure. I think it's shut it off. But I think people were using the home inspection for the wrong reason.
There is that.
Right? Yep. Because you did mention on that, people were using the home inspection so they can negotiate better. Not thinking about, they should know what can go wrong.
Yeah.
And I love that. The reason I recommend you all the time is because you educate buyers. Yeah. I know you were just talking to the other realtor when she called in and said, book it for extra half an hour and you asked that question,
are
that
they a
first-time home buyer or not, right? Yeah. Because they need more information.
Sure. They always have more questions.
Always have more questions. Yeah. But also, like you said, like, for the maintenance part,
Mm-hmm.
it's good. Like you got it, you get this fix, but what next? If something goes wrong with your plumbing, if something goes with your roof, something goes wrong, not shutting off the valve in winter time, reminding those things, not cleaning the filters, it will cost them more in the long run.
Oh, sure. And I think most consumers, I'll say no.
Yeah.
Maintenance is key, right?
Oh, for
Take care
sure.
of it. You spend a little now, you save a lot later. We all kind of know that.
Right, right. Well, I'll dive to the questions which I have written over here. So I know, like, when people hiring the home inspector, what are the do's and don'ts for the homeowners before a home inspection?
It's a big question, but
Right.
if I'll try to answer it just based on my perspective as a home inspector, and I'll speak specific to our province, Ontario, but most provinces in Canada are the same, and that is there's no regulation or licensing for home inspectors in most provinces. It's only Alberta and British Columbia that have licensing.
Right.
So it's kind of still the Wild West in most of the provinces in Canada.
Right.
So it boils down to you really do get what you pay for. You can go on to the likes of Kijiji and find an inspector and he might be a good inspector. I don't want to take that away, but
Correct.
you can find an inspector for $300. But what does he do for you? What's his knowledge base? What is he giving you after the inspection? Things like this. And let's face it, most inspectors, they say, I'm only seeing the house now. I can only report on it on how I see it today.
Correct.
Right. We go a little further with the warranties, and we can talk about that later. But what the point I'm trying to make is it is a huge, big distance between the lower and the higher inspectors.
Yeah.
Right.
And like same thing, like in our profession as well.
Absolutely.
There's a discount brokerages and there are full service brokerages and everything. It depends on, like I say, you get what you paid for.
Yeah.
Right. You cannot just say that, Tim Hortons coffee is similar as like the high-end coffee or even Starbucks. You cannot compare that, right?
And there's also personal opinion, personal taste.
Yeah.
Right. So I like McDonald's myself.
Yeah. But here's absolutely, there's McDonald's as well. So there are options for people. I love cars, but I'm not the high-end car guy. But for me, like a saying that, why Porsche is like so expensive? I can get, Kia for cheap, or Hyundai for cheap. Why I pay for that? Like it doesn't make sense to me. So it's just like a value what you see on that, right?
So to go back to your question, the first thing is to know that there is no regulation. So you've got to do more diligence when you're dealing with an industry that doesn't have any regulation.
Right.
And I can't think of any others right now, but certainly my industry, there's a big difference between the good and the bad. So that's the first thing. You got to do diligence, find a good inspector. How do you do it? Well, let's face it, Google reviews are really good.
Right.
You can't, as a business owner, you can't mess with a bad review.
Yeah.
Right. So that's one thing. Hopefully you're working with a realtor that you trust. Right. And there's loads of good realtors out there. I work with a lot of good. In fact, the bad realtors tend not to want to work with me, if I'm being honest. Right?
Yeah.
The good realtors are going to be so valuable in everything, but certainly they're going to know some good home inspectors.
Right.
Then still do your own due diligence. Get prepared. Why you took time to find a realtor to work with. Why not take time to find a home inspector to work with?
For sure.
Yeah, you can start with the realtor, but why not do your own investigating? It's not too hard to do a Google search and find, and there's loads of us out there. Still.
Right.
So, but that's it. Put effort into finding your home inspector would probably be the big thing, I would say.
Yeah, let's not talk about this. I know you talk about like selection of the home inspection and everything, but as a preparing for the listing.
If you're selling?
If you're selling, because that's the homeowner thing of swinging at the do's and don'ts. So what do you recommend to do, like we're preparing for the house, and how to look for those things which can tumble your deal, maybe,
deal.
or you might end up paying like a negotiation and you end up paying more. Right.
So, I mean, I guess there's two parts to that. One is getting the house ready for a pre-listing inspection. I mean, that's the advice. Get a pre-listing inspection. Knowledge is power. We all know it. But first, you got to get the house a bit ready. So if you got a few light bulbs light fixtures that aren't working, put new light bulbs in. Because as home inspectors, we're not really we can't take things apart. That's our mandate, right? We have to leave it in exactly the way we find the home, right? So am I going to take a chance on screwing a bulb out of a chandelier of a dining room? No. So if it's not working, I'm going to say, now, I tend to be a bit of a diplomatic home inspector.
Yes.
I'm going to say this light fixture wasn't working at the time of the inspection. It could be light bulbs.
Correct.
Get the sellers to do that. But if not, you need to get an electrician in to find out why it's not working.
For sure.
So I don't want to be speculative, but sometimes I have to be. Yeah. So walk around your own home and just make sure stuff's working. Make sure the house is clean and clear. It just makes the inspector's job a little easier. We get to see things. I never like putting in the report unable to go into the attic because of all the stored items.
Yeah.
Right? Can't get to the furnace, can't get to the electrical panel. There's some key elements that we need to get to, or big ticket items we need to get to. And if we can't, we disclaim those.
Yeah.
So that's going to hurt.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? And then, other than getting the house ready for the inspection, it's just have a good inspector come out that's going to do, a really thorough job and give you a good report.
Yeah.
And now you can sit down with your realtor if you're not comfortable yourself, and the realtor will guide you on what they think you should fix.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And that's a key, because just like you mentioned before, if you don't know, you don't know. Right? And a lot of times it happens because we're living in a house. I've found myself like in the very, maintenance, changing filters every 3 months, looking to the attic and, not the eavesdrop, clean those ones. But even then, like sometimes you ignore some of the areas in your house.
Oh, you just don't think of them.
You don't think about that. Yeah. And that's rotting or something happening over there, which can create the problem in the long run, right? Windows condensation, very normal.
And certainly in the winter.
Yeah, for sure. But I do remember like when I got my brand new house, and I took you like a couple of those ones as well, new build, and then you mentioned that do it after 1 year rather than doing it right now. Right. And giving the great advice, and you came all the way, didn't charge even me, like I think you're kind enough for that one, but anybody could have done it. And say, hey, I just came in, I'm just going to charge the money. You didn't, because you gave the right advice to my clients.
Well, that's the thing as well, is you touched on it earlier.
Yeah.
Education first. I mean, certainly we're there to find the issues.
Right.
Every house is going to have some issues, but it's also how you communicate to the clients and to the realtors.
Yeah.
Right? Not all realtors know everything.
No.
Right? I've been doing this 19 years. I still occasionally find something I've never seen before.
That's right.
And, newer homes are coming with newer things. So it's constantly changing and evolving. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's about communication.
It is.
It really boils down to that.
Yeah. And definitely, sometimes it happens like, we were talking and sometimes they get really scared about, oh my God, like, this is what's happening, what's going to happen. Then turn out like the remedy is like a couple $100, not even a lot. It looks big, but it's not a big deal.
Yep.
And sometimes, like, they think, this is minor. And then, no, this is not minor. It can cause you issues, right?
Sure.
So, like, a thorough inspections, like, definitely help knowing what you have. And the other thing which I say, like, now and don'ts, which you probably have a lot of examples when people try to hide things, even after knowing.
Yeah.
Right? Those defects. And how many times you find it? Like, and what kind of things you think a lot of people hide?
What scares me? There's probably been many times more where they hit it and I didn't find it.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to hide stuff.
Right.
Right. And again, let's remember a home inspection is a non-invasive examination of the home.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if we had permission to knock holes in walls? Sellers wouldn't be too happy.
No, for sure.
Right? So we really have to go on certainly training, experience.
Right.
But if somebody wants to do a good enough job, they can probably hide it. I could walk in, say I'm doing a bedroom, and I open up the doors of the closet.
Yeah.
And there's lots of stuff in there. I poke my head. I smell. I mean, smell's a great sense for when you're doing home inspection.
For sure. Yeah.
But there's a strong possibility that they painted that closet and then put suitcases in front of it.
Right.
I'm not going to pull everything out.
Right.
They could have mold on it.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, so it's fairly easy to hide stuff.
It is like, and the mold is the one, like, people like sometimes like they just paint it over,
Sure.
And it's looking, and soon after a month, if the property is not selling, then it's like it's coming out.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the good news is as much as things can be hidden from us, most sellers, and we should turn and talk about flippers.
Yeah.
Right? Those are the ones that I'm scared of.
Yes.
One of the questions I typically ask the agent is, do we know how long the current family has owned the home?
Right.
Right. If it's 6 months or a year, well, the hairs go up on the back of my neck. I always call myself a professional skeptic.
Yeah.
Right. So now I got some information that maybe this is a flip, and now I'm going to feel a bit different about this as I go through the home.
Yeah.
Right? But homes tend to paint pictures. It's not just one color.
No.
It's not just one scene. So generally speaking, we'll start to get several clues that things are amiss.
Right.
I think that might be what separates a good inspector from an average inspector.
It's like a professional investigator.
Well, it is, because it's one thing to walk in the home. This is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong.
Right.
It's another thing to ask yourself, why is it wrong?
Uh-huh.
Or what brought us to this situation that made that wrong?
Right.
Electrical is a good example. Maybe we can go into some more detail on stuff like that.
For sure, and that's leading to my next questions. Question is, can you share some common mistakes people make during a home inspection and how to avoid them?
You mean for the buyer now, or?
Well, now they hire you, right? And
Okay.
let's say another inspector came in, or they said, inspection was done like at the before, everything
so
is
they had a
all right.
pre-listing.
They had
Okay.
the pre-inspection done, but now you're finding the more stuff on there.
All right, so the sellers had, now I'm coming in for the buyers.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fairly common procedure. And I'll start by saying, when I'm doing a pre-listing inspection, sometimes people are surprised to learn that I charge the same price on a pre-listing because they think it might be easier. It's not, it's harder.
Yeah.
Because I've got to be even more careful.
Correct.
Because there might be another professional coming in after me. Now, I don't want to say more careful because I'm always trying to be careful, but let's face it, human nature.
Yeah, for sure.
When the chips are down, we might have to work a little harder to ensure to cover our butts. Let's be honest. That's kind of human nature. That's how I feel about it anyway. So if I'm going in for buyers and they've had a pre-listing inspection, sometimes I'll be asked, "Do you want to see the report?" No, I don't want to see it because it kind of messes with your head a little.
Oh, for sure. You have the preconceived notions now, yeah?
Yeah. Although I will tend to look at it afterwards when I've actually done, because then I'm curious, right? Again, human nature.
Have you missed something? Or
this is actually a good time to talk about it.
Right.
There was, I wish I could give you the details on it, but there's been studies done where they've taken one house and had several inspectors do it. Right?
Right.
And about 70% of those reports are the same. But about 30%, this guy found a little cracked piece of glass in one room.
Right.
Another guy found a doorknob that's not working. Another one found an outlet that's not working. So I tell my clients, I'm not here to find everything.
Correct.
I'm here to find the important stuff. I'm here to find the stuff that's either going to hurt you or hurt your pocketbook.
Right.
Right? So there's that too. But now I'm with the buyers. We have a standards of practice.
Yes.
All provinces do.
Yeah.
That standards of practice, at the end of the day, it protects me more than it does the consumer, but it's there for both.
Right.
'Cause now we have a baseline of what a real home inspection or a professional home inspection should be.
Right.
But that standards of practice is what we go by, and any good home inspector is going to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? So I go through the home. There's really no difference for me whether it's been pre-listed or not. Right. I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, it's what the common mistakes people do, and what you mentioned in there. But also,
all right, then go back to common mistakes. You mean as far as what the buyer does during the inspection?
Yes.
Well, I'll be honest. Pre-COVID, I was very much having the client attached to my hip.
Right.
Right. And as I say, I am very much a people person, so I kind of got off on that interaction.
Right.
But during COVID, when we had to separate a little bit more, I found out I'm a better inspector if I don't have the client quite attached to me. So what I've done now is we do the outside together because you can kind of keep your distance.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'll do the upstairs, and I'll tell the client, let me go upstairs. I'm gonna put on my inspector hat.
Right.
Once I'm done, I'll put on my tour guide hat.
That's right.
Right. And then I'll call you up and I'll take you through everything I just saw.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's sad to say, but it's also about managing liability as a business owner.
Oh, for sure.
Right. If the clients aren't there, thank goodness in Ontario, it's pretty much the norm that the clients are present.
Yes.
Right. But I want them to know the work I've done for them.
Yes.
Right. So
Yeah,
touring them through everything I've seen, the education, of course.
For sure.
But also they get to see that, hey, I looked at this, I looked at that.
Yeah.
That's really important.
Yeah.
But one mistake a lot of clients make is they just blatantly start asking questions.
Mm.
They just, I'm looking at this and they're, hey, Mark, what about this?
Yes.
I get it. And I used to kind of just put up with it. Again, Mr. Nice Guy.
Yeah.
But now I feel I'm doing a disservice. So I stop them and say, let me inspect, and then we'll go to your questions.
Yeah.
So that's a big, probably that's the
Yeah,
only-
because you have a system and process in place. Like, this are the step-by-step things which you're going to do, so you're not going to miss anything. And I know, like, we had that conversation before as well, like, how you used to work before and what you have changed in that. Again, COVID was the reason, but also, like, sometimes it's a blessing in disguise, like those kind of things. When you get pushed, you find a better way to do things,
Yes,
right?
that's right.
Yeah. So, which is great to hear, like, once you're recognizing that, and after that you're giving the clear picture, and pointing out those items which could be a concern. And sometimes it's also, I found, like, when then people looking for those items, hey, the paint chip was missing, and now they want them to paint the whole wall, right? And they want to get, like, that's going to cost me like $1,000 from nowhere, from where? Where it's come out, like, be reasonable about it, right?
Well, you mentioned something earlier we could backtrack on, and that is sometimes I think there's buyer's remorse between the time they did the deal and the time I show up to do the inspection.
Right. Yeah.
So it hasn't happened often, maybe 3 or 4 times in my career. But I've had the spouse, whichever one it changes, but I've had the spouse, sometimes it's presented in jest, but they mean it.
Yeah.
I hope you find something that kills this deal.
Yeah.
Right. I don't respond to it. I just move on with the business at hand.
Yeah.
And there's another point. One of the powers of a home inspection is we're unbiased. We're there to be unbiased. That's our job.
For sure.
We're not there on the seller side, the realtor side, or the buyer side.
Yeah.
We are there strictly to give you an unbiased.
To give you the unbiased.
And why is this powerful? Well, if you've got a roof problem and you hire a roofer, he's going to talk you into buying a roof.
Yeah.
Right? You hire a home inspector, we're going to talk you into maybe you do need a roof.
Right.
Or maybe you could get a localized repair for, 10% of what a new roof would be.
Right.
Right. That's a big power.
Yeah.
Anyway, I kind of digressed on that, but
yeah. But like, it's to your point, like, giving them the unbiased opinion and findings which you're presenting in front of them.
Yes.
And somebody who wants to get that manipulated to show that you want to get out the deal.
Yeah.
I don't think, like, you ever sign up for that.
No,
right?
it's unusual, thank goodness, but it
Yeah.
does happen.
Yeah.
Another thing that I probably the only other thing I can think of anyway, where buyers fall down, is they don't read the report. And the report, you're paying for an inspection, but that report ends up being an actual representation of the inspection.
For sure.
Right? So on the funny side, I have clients call me 3 weeks later, I'm trying to get insurance. What kind of wiring is in the house?
Yeah.
Well, it's in the report. I don't say that.
Yeah.
But it's in the report.
You read that, yeah.
Or
but it's easy and convenient, right?
Sure.
Yeah, it's always...
I mean, I look at it, at least I've got a connection with the client again, so
Yeah.
that's cool, and I don't mind it. But it does sort of
Yeah.
prove my point, right?
Right,
And let's face it, in 19 years, I've had a few clients, oh, you missed this, oh, you missed that.
Yeah.
Well, no, sir, on page 47, we told you
there.
it needed
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Read the report. Take it seriously.
For sure. And I love, I remember, like, a lot of inspectors I know, like, at least I work with 3 or 4.
Sure.
But you're the first one who was very open to adapting technology, using drone for roof inspections and everything. Yeah. I still remember those, what do you used to call that stick?
Oh, my roofie stick.
The roofie stick.
Yeah.
Roofie stick, like, is like it's a stick which is, it's
20
not a selfie stick, but it's like a 20 feet
Oh yeah, it is
selfie
the
stick.
28-foot selfie stick.
That was before drone.
Yeah, that's right.
And then drone. But in some areas you cannot use the drone, so you still use those.
Oh, I have to.
Yeah. So yeah, like it's technology wise, used like infrared.
I was a pretty early adopter of it.
Yeah.
I mean, home inspectors love to say it's a visual only inspection.
Yeah.
But let's face it, most good home inspectors have some pretty good tools that go a little beyond the visual. But
And I do remember one of the condo we did, which was there was a water spot in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And then,
but no water.
but there was no water.
Just damage.
And it was just damage.
It was damp. I remember that. It was damp. But did you ever find out?
Yeah, we did actually. So turn out they had the high-tech plumbing in that building. Right.
Okay.
And it's the funny thing was, like, a realtor was in the board of that condo, and he didn't disclose it.
Oh, okay.
Right. He knew that
Right.
they have the high-tech plumbing, but he didn't disclose it, and they tried to hide that. But when we got the status certificate, it was clearly mentioned on there.
Oh, okay.
And that's what the recommendation for replacing and everything. So we could have gone
Well, they must have hidden it, because one thing I do remember is we started grabbing at straws. Why is this like that? And where we can see the plumbing, it was not high-tech.
No.
So it was all behind the scenes.
Yeah, it was all behind the scenes. So later find out, whole building was the high-tech plumbing.
Yeah.
And the damage would happen upstairs. That's what it came down.
Wow.
Downstairs. But anyway, I lost that deal, but because we did that, my client ended up buying even for more price somewhere else. So it was beneficial for me, it's for a couple months delay.
Right.
But because we did our due diligence and giving them, this is what, are you comfortable with that?
Yeah.
And we also have, the people, sometimes we thought, I thought, my client won't be comfortable with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And they said, no, that's not a big deal. I can live with that.
I learned a huge lesson in that early on in my career.
Yeah.
I inspected a home that was around Dufferin and St. Clair area. Old, at the time it was an 80-year-old home. This house was so bad, and it was a realtor I had done several inspections with, so I had a bit of rapport. I took him aside and I said, do you really think your client should buy this home? Which, I shouldn't do that. That's not my job.
Exactly.
But let's face it, I'm human. I want to take care of people, right?
For sure, yeah.
And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, this house is in really rough shape.
Yeah.
I started taking it through a few of the things. And he said, well, just as usual, do your job, let them know.
Right.
So this house was so bad, it had 2 additions on the back of it. When we got into the basement, it had a mold issue.
Yeah.
It had the worst mold issue I've ever come across.
Yeah.
And I guess we should have even known about it, because before we got to the basement, we were feeling a bit sick.
Yeah,
anyway, we get to the basement. The mold, I swear, it was like being in a cave. It had stalactites hanging. It was like drapes of mold and mounds of mold.
Wow.
And it had this little, I call it this little creek running through 2 additions and into the main. It was like a little creek.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, it turned out this young man was from Poland. His whole family was in construction. They were buying the home as an investment. And he was going to have all his brothers and cousins and uncles over to fix the house up.
Okay.
So apparently 2 years later, I never did get to see it, but apparently 2 years later it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Right. So they had a mission.
Yes.
And their mission kind of was find the crappiest house so we can afford it.
That's right. Yeah, for sure.
Right. So I learned a lesson there. Right.
Yeah.
Don't assume
Don't
how
assume.
I feel about a home.
That's right.
Is necessarily how they're going to feel about a home. Now I'll usually put my I was going to say I'll put my stink on it. I don't know how else to say it, but I'll usually give them some kind of an impression on what I think if it's a significant issue.
Yeah.
Right. But
honest to God, sometime it happens. I said, I swear to God, Mark used the right language, not because I know now I know they get scared pretty fast and won't scare them. But that was a funny thing. But I always want the reason I hire you, because you always give the honest opinion about it.
Yeah.
It's not we can avoid this or it should be okay kind of thing. You just give as is your opinion.
Yeah.
Not manipulating it. You do educate them. At the same time, these are the options. You can replace it or you can repair it.
That's the thing, right? You want to deliver the issue.
Yeah.
And, you know, some inspectors, I've heard them.
Yeah.
During the multiple offers of 2007, that's when it first happened. But anyway, during multiple offers, sometimes there's more than one inspection at the same time. And I've heard some of these inspectors, so I know they're out there.
Yeah.
But it's offering perspective.
For sure.
And it's not necessarily my perspective.
Yeah.
Because I've been doing this so long, I know how I've seen the reactions, right?
Right.
I've seen people walk away because the house had trying to think, a couple of plumbing leaks and needed some new windows.
Right.
Right. I've had other people buy a house full of mold.
Right.
And be happy to buy it.
Yeah.
Right. So the perspective I give is based on all those interactions I've had.
Right.
Right. And I'll sometimes tell people what I just told you. Sometimes
for
people
sure.
will walk away for the simplest thing.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
Well, that's sweet. Now getting back to this is more toward the first time home buyers. They never knew what the home inspection is all about. To educate them, what are the key things that homeowners should look for during a home inspection?
Well, I mean, that's what I'm there to look at it for them. But
Yes.
I mean, if you're talking about, say, you're showing homes,
Right.
and first-time buyers are coming across homes for the first time,
Correct.
some of the key things to look for, I guess, is what you're saying.
Right.
Well, one that you're going to raise your eyebrows like most realtors do. I think I raise my eyebrows now too. Grading.
Yeah.
All right. The slope of the ground is a huge factor in if you're going to have wet basement issues.
Yeah.
And because it's so common, I think some of us get complacent on that. It's like, oh, here we go again. The home inspector found poor grading.
Yeah.
But it's simple physics. If the ground is sloping towards the house, where's the rainwater going to go?
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a wet basement, especially a younger home, because it's going to have weeping tile and waterproofing around the foundation.
Right.
But it's still a higher risk. Yeah, I'm sure you've heard me say.
Yeah.
I'm the guy with the analogies, right? We all know of the 95-year-old smoker who still doesn't have lung cancer.
Yeah.
But we also know if you smoke, you've got a much higher risk of lung cancer.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's going to be wet, but grading anyway is big.
Big thing.
Good news is it's pretty easy to fix, especially if you don't mind getting sweaty. Some shovels, right? Electrical issues. I mean, I'm very cautious with electrical because anything can turn into something.
Oh, for sure.
Right? Something as simple as a missing cover plate. Well, if you've got a young child and they put their finger in there, they're going to get zapped, or a spark could jump out. So so I'm very cautious with electrical.
Right.
There's not too much, I guess, a homeowner can do themselves.
Yeah.
On that.
Plumbing, I know.
Well, no, plumbing's a good one. Plumbing, because even as an inspector, there's only so much I can do. So what do I do? I walk into a bathroom. First thing I do is I just generally. Actually, here's a good thing. Let's just look at a room.
Yes.
The bathroom is a good room
Yeah.
to look at. So I literally stand at the doorway and I take a picture of the room. That's the first thing I do.
Right.
Then I take a mental picture. I just look at the room in general. How does it feel? How does it smell? How does it look? Right? If it's dirty and filthy, I bet I'm going to find something. Right? If it's nice and clean, even if it's an older home, maybe not going to be so bad. Right?
Yeah.
First thing to do, get the tub going.
Yeah.
Get the tub running. Then I open up the cabinet, get the sink running, flush the toilet, watch the flow of the water.
Right.
Because I'm sure we've all experienced the hot shower syndrome.
Yeah.
Right? It's not too pleasant.
Yeah.
You're going to get it in an older home or in an older neighborhood. Shake the toilet.
Yeah.
Not too hard, because if it is loose, you could spring a leak.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
But move it gently.
Yeah.
If it moves, it shouldn't be.
But yeah.
All right.
But yeah, that's for sure.
Right.
That's for sure.
Look under the sink.
Yeah.
Look at things. That's really all it is.
Yeah, you just have to look into closely on that. A lot of time we miss one. I look into the dirt in the vent fan, that's a washroom fan.
Yeah.
And you look into that. Okay, so it seems like the rest of they clean it, but they forgot to clean that.
Yep.
And it's going to be noisy and it's going to create issues. So what I do, when I'm taking my buyers for showings, they're looking at the pretty stuff, like, you know, how well the staging is done. Yeah. Oh, look at that mirror. I should buy that mirror as well. I'm like, no, it's not coming with the house. You should look for that, what's coming, that look into the bones, not the skin. Yeah. And sometimes it's hard for them to understand. And that's the whole purpose of staging is, like, you know, it's making it pretty. So you fall for it. Yep. And then when you see without the staging, okay, like, this is what I bought. You know, how many times that happened?
You'll see that more than me because you're going in maybe a day before closing, right? And now the house is empty.
I'll make it pretty as well, because sometimes you look, you know, people have no idea how to set up that room to look it like, you know, beautiful home. Regardless, like, what I was saying is, like, you know, when I go, I start looking for those things. I know I used to work with the KT team and having those tools, because we have to have those tools now because the home inspections was not happening, right, and we want to protect our clients. So having those, moisture meter and stuff like that. So I go looking for all the, flushing the toilets, looking on those, shaking the seat, checking the closet, checking a little bit of attic windows, if the condensation there, looking in the furnace, if the filter was cleaned or not. And that gives you all the indication about that one. So as a realtor, that's my job, to look into those major things which I can do, like a material defect in front of it. But even then, like, some of the stuff, because I'm showing it's not only the liability, having that fresh eye, because I'm going there. And that's what the reason I'm going to get the home inspection, which is you. Even I learned a lot from you, what to look for. And I always have in my mental what the Mark is going to say, what Mark is going to say. And every time it happens, it says something additional.
One of the things I love, and I hear it quite often, is I was waiting for Mark to find that.
And that's right. Yeah. And sometimes we had the fun game like that too, right? Like looking to that, let's see if Mark can find that or not, because I found it first.
Yep.
Yeah. Remember, like, in the one time it happens, you come to me and says, I want to show you something. And there was a skeleton of a animal underneath the deck.
Rings a bell, but
right. Yeah. So I tell you, like, the story, what happened is, like, when I said, this house is absolutely fine. Where did this come from? Like, what is all about? Turn out, like, she was a science teacher and she saw the specimen. Actually, she was storing there. So I just came to find out later. It was scary, like hell.
Well, yeah, like, if you don't know the context.
Don't know the context. Like somebody got killed or something. It looks like I don't know. I think it was a deer or something like that. Anyway, so we find, like, a lot of interesting things and do's and don'ts. What to look for is there.
So I just want to be a little controversial.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize that you were, and some of your team members were, going out and doing the moisture meter thing.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, are you doing anything to manage that liability? Because here's my first thought when you said that.
No.
Not a lot of people know this, and I'll be very brief.
Yeah.
The whole reason the home inspection business got started was because a couple of California realtors back in, I think it was either late 70s or early 80s,
right?
They put their opinion on a home and got sued and lost. And so they started bringing in a contractor to assume that responsibility. Right. And that quickly turned into home inspection. Right?
Yeah.
So I just found it a little odd that you guys are doing that when home inspection actually started to protect realtors.
No. What I did, like, when this scene was going on, like, bidding wars and everything, and some of the things, like, which I cannot ignore as a realtor showing on that. So what we were doing is, like, looking into those items, and then I said, we must go home inspection. Okay. We should not take away that, because I can see some symptoms over here, and that's confirming my meter over here.
Yeah.
But it does look like a bigger issue over there. And I can't tell you what's a bigger issue should be, but let's bring the home inspector, because if I go and sell the seller side and say, you are BSing, but when it's coming in the report form and with the evidence, like,
and
then
third party unbiased.
And third party.
Right.
So we just use it, like,
I see.
Just for, like, having due diligence on them and finding those things earlier, rather than going that far and they say, hey, we put our deposit, and that time like it was hard. If I'm not getting this house, I have to go to the second house.
Oh, sure.
And I cannot hold my deposit for a week or two because I cannot bid on other places.
Plus, if you hire a home inspector and you're spending $500-600 and then you don't get the house, you're out $500-600.
I know, and sometimes it happens even with like the house, and we have that consideration before we put an offer. I called you and say like, can you look into the stuff? Is even worth it? Like I'm putting an offer.
That was huge the last couple of years.
Right. Yeah.
And I was happy to do it because at least I know I was in the realtors' minds.
Yes.
But I'd get a text, Mark, what do you think of this? What do you think of that?
Yeah.
And I'm happy to help.
Right. Like those was quick inspections, but you were looking into the major stuff, like which can cause. It was like not the detailed one,
right?
But at least like it was giving the information. Okay, now this is not the major issue. It could be a major issue, whatever there was, and then we're making out like should we put an offer or take that chance or not, because we're not going to get the second chance.
Sure.
Right. So that helped actually a lot in some of the deals we did. Could you provide some scenarios where homeowners discovered major issues during an inspection, and what remedies were suggested?
Yeah, that can be a tricky one because we want to be careful as home inspectors on giving remedies, because that's really not our purpose.
Yes.
Having done, been in construction for a long time previous to inspecting,
Right.
And a lot of inspectors are the same.
Right.
But we try to be very cautious on that. If it's something simple, then of course it's pretty simple. Again, not a great example, but if switches are out,
let's say basement crack.
Okay.
Right?
All right. Sure. Basement cracks, well, again, can be a little bit of a gray area sometimes because it depends on what type of crack. Is it vertical, diagonal, horizontal?
Right.
They make a difference, right? But if it's, say, your typical crack in a 20-year-old home in southern Ontario, it's probably just going to be very fine, no shifting, no movement or anything like that. So that's simple. I mean, that's just an epoxy injection to fix that.
Right.
But to look at your question sort of more broadly, as I say, we want to be a little more cautious about how we give advice on what can
remedies,
be done. So what I like to do is offer sort of, and I'll tell them off the record, because this isn't my job, but off the record, that's an epoxy injection.
Yeah.
But if I see something a little worse, I'm going to say, well, why don't probably best we talk about the worst case scenario.
Right.
That way we know it can't get any worse than that.
Yeah.
Or the typical worst case scenario, as I like to say, right? So in that case there, if it's a finished basement with a crack, and the crack's maybe got a little bit of movement to it, it's still probably just going to be an epoxy injection.
Right.
But now you need to get a specialist to come out and give you a proper assessment of the situation.
Right.
I can tell you the worst case scenario, they're going to want to dig.
Yeah.
Right. And they're going to want to they're going to want to cover the crack as opposed to just an injection. So now you could be into $5,000 depending on, So I like to say sometimes the best I can do is get the tiger by the tail, but I can only see the tail.
Yes.
Now you need somebody who can take the time to see the tiger.
For sure. Like, and I know like a lot of times happen, like, plumbing is clunking and everything, when you're flushing it. And
here's a good one.
Yeah.
Drains.
Yeah.
Right. Home inspectors don't test floor drains in a basement. Right. I had done it on occasion where I felt there could be a problem, and that was only because I was lucky it was an unfinished basement. It had a jug in the laundry tub, and pouring water, that sort of thing. But generally speaking, that's just not something we do.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes we want to recommend further evaluation because either we couldn't tell you enough, or it's just something we can't tell you at all.
Yeah. But most of the time I see on your report, like, what's needed to be done. Like it just need the maintenance, for example, or it just need to replace. That's what the recommendation is.
Yep.
And those are the remedies, like, what I was thinking about, like, talking about rather than just giving the verbal, but what you put in your report when they see it. Like, and your report is very detailed and very comprehensive. Even like sometimes you put like major stuff and then you go home when you look into the pictures. Oh, by the way, this can be a big issue.
Roof is a good example of that, especially flying the drone over the roof.
Yeah.
I never like to give an official opinion because the drone screen, I only have an 8-inch screen. So, I'll say typically, I didn't see anything glaringly obvious, but, I'm going to study these pictures on a big screen back in my office.
For sure.
And then inevitably, I find a couple of blown off shingles or whatever.
Yeah.
So, things can change. Yeah.
We covered this one over here, but maybe enhance a little bit more. Are there any specific areas or components of a home that homeowners often overlook during an inspection?
I don't know if I would say just necessarily during an inspection. Maybe if I could speak to that from I get to the house and it's obvious the homeowner hasn't been maintaining this or that, right? So you touched on one earlier, eaves trough, right? Wet basement, not just the grading, but it's also, I've joked that there's sort of offense and defense to keeping your basement dry. Offense is pretty much everything you can see if you stand back and look at the house. So it starts with the roof, right? The roof's job is to let the rain hit it, flow down to your gutters or eaves troughs, and down the downspouts, and then off into a safe area, right? As well as the grading. The defense is the stuff we can't see. So if we could take away all the soil around the foundation, what is, we've got a weeping tile, which takes water off and away. We've got a waterproof membrane, and we've got a protector over that as well. Right. So if your offense isn't doing a good job, now you have to count on the defense. So as you said earlier, eaves trough is huge. If they're overflowing, you can usually see it looks like a trough in the soil. Right, and you see soil splash back against the house. So again, if you've got poor grading, well, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, so that's a big one. That's a huge one. Caulking. I guess a lot of this is water related.
Yeah,
homes need windows, doors, any gaps around the house. You want to stop the moisture. You want to stop the pests from getting in. So that's a big one as well. Things that need to be painted, not being painted. So whether it be older wood windows, door trim, pillars outside on the front porch.
Big one.
Right? So keeping the paint in good condition. I'll say those are something we use as clues as to what we're going to encounter when we really get into the inspection. Yeah. Generally speaking, unless it's a flip, you can judge a book by its cover a little bit. Yeah. Still being professional skeptic in the background.
Yeah, that's right.
But if I pull up to the house and everything's really nicely manicured in the landscaping, that is a huge giveaway that we're probably not going to find too much.
Yeah, for sure.
Generally speaking.
And then the one thing I admire a lot, when people, and I'm like, why don't builders do that way? And we have talked about that a long time back, when the pipe coming out and it's leaving on the half on the roof.
Oh, right.
And you see one side is decolored because all the time the water coming in and also causing the damage, rather than extending it all the way to eaves trough so it can go proper in the pipe. And even I admire those people who take care of that. Even the eaves trough coming down, they can then either they're putting the pipe underneath properly to is going flowing the water properly
to a ravine or whatever,
to ravine or something, or even I'm lucky my neighbor did it because he's a construction guy. Yeah. So he was asking when he was between the way to the backyard.
Oh, like
when
landscaping?
He was landscaping when I was doing. So he put those pipes and run it to all the way. So it's going all in the sink in the back, because we had the sink in the back. So it's going all the way back on there. So when he did his and mine, so now it looks, wow, it's professionally done. And that give just like you said, it will give having that good curb appeal, having that the cleanliness and maintaining from outside, chances are you taking care of other stuff as well.
Oh yeah, I mean it's one thing to pull up into a house and there's all fresh mulch on the gardens.
Yeah,
that to me is not necessarily
that's right. Yeah.
But if you pull up and everything's just neat and tidy and
driveway
warm, there's a good example too, right?
Driveway.
You need to top coat your driveway.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Yeah. So there's definitely clues.
And a lot of times, and that's what the maintenance part come out as well.
Sure.
People, when you buy the house, and especially if you're not, I deal with a lot of people who's coming from Southeast Asia and everything. They never did any construction work, even put the nail in the wall. And you ask them why your lawn is not maintained and everything, because they never did it. Yeah. And then they find it's too expensive to give that work to somebody, or they will do a pretty bad job, right? Because they haven't done it right before.
Sure.
So like always like said that, okay, oh yeah, that will be okay. Even like the biggest one I hate, like, when the landlord saying it's okay just not to clean that stuff or leave that stuff over here because it's just a tenanted property. I always like said, if you're not taking care of your house, how are you going to do it?
Well, when I got into the business, I was very surprised by how many people don't care for their home.
No.
So I guess I should thank them because it keeps me in business. But,
for sure.
But I was quite surprised.
Well, it's a reality because the thing is, I can tell you, like with the immigration and everything and that happened, like a lot of people coming out, type of demographics coming out, they never did that kind of thing.
Right.
Person who born and brought up over here, the farm the handy, they know tools,
right.
How to do it. Like sometimes it's just using the right tool to do this stuff. They don't know about it, right? So it's like the education part as well. And some people are like curious about learning. I remember like when I did my house, we're doing fence, and it's like, oh my God, I have to do my fence. I don't know. All my neighbors, they're mostly like a white people in North America, and they're pretty good. So like, no, don't worry, we'll help you. And all you have to do is grab these ones over here. So I brought it. I got the nail gun and everything, and said, and one of my neighbor coming, okay, all you have to do is click, 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 and just keep on doing this, okay? And then I did that. Then he come back and go, oh, make sure you're straight. Make sure it's not tilted. Make sure this. And he just guided me. Yeah. And I built the full fence. And my wife was so proud of me at that time that, I did it because I never did that before.
Yeah.
So it's like about, you're willing to do and to adapting the culture of that as well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I guess there would be. I mean, I think even different people of different educational levels.
For sure.
I very often I'll hear, oh, my husband he's
not a handyman.
He's an academic. He's not a handyman.
Yeah.
Right? That's pretty common. So,
I always ask that questions when I'm doing the buyer consultation in the starting.
Wise.
It's like, are you a handyman? Or how you like.
Well, funny enough, that's like me at the beginning of every inspection. Most inspectors affectionately call this the driveway chat, right? I'll ask clients, do you have any particular concerns? Do you have any significant goals out of this inspection? Anything you want to chat about? Yeah. Then I'll ask them, what's your construction level, knowledge level like? Because that affords me an opportunity to get an idea of how I can speak to them.
Yeah.
Right. And I was just going to say, that's part of the fun thing for me. After all these years, the one thing I still love is the interaction with clients.
Yeah.
Especially first-time buyers, because I get to feel maybe a little more important because they really see the value in what I can do for them.
Oh, for sure. Coming to that questions, and I know how you work, but it's for our audience. Can you start from the start to finish your process and what the extra you provide to, home inspection?
We're not going to get into detail or we're going to be here for 2 hours, right?
No, that's right. I know you want to brag about what you do. You have bragging rights if you do it right.
Yeah, fair enough. I kind of touched on it a bit. Like a house paints a picture, so my job is to take in all the information and sort of turn that into a story.
Yes.
Right. So my process, just to give a quick oversight, is I always start on the outside and then I work from the top to the bottom. The outside I want to do first because that's going to give me a better idea of the hot spots for where moisture intrusion could be happening. Because let's face it, as any homeowner, moisture is our biggest enemy, whether it be a plumbing issue or the rains, right?
Yeah.
So start with the outside. Then it's from the top to the bottom. Why? Well, I like to know where the bathrooms are so that when I get to the lower level, I can be a little more specific on checking the ceilings below those bathrooms.
Right.
Then we get through the kitchen. I'm not the only one, but there's a good handful of inspectors that don't want to do appliances because they feel it's too much of a liability.
Right.
I always tell clients, we're just doing it as a courtesy. It's not like I'm going to turn the oven to 500 degrees and then measure it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Did it get hot? Did the burners work? Is the dishwasher not leaking? Things like that. We give our clients a report on any recalls of the appliances. They usually get that the next day.
Yeah.
And then we're down into the basement, and that's the bulk of the learning that I can deliver to clients, because that's where all the the significant working components are: the furnace, the air conditioner, plumbing, sources of plumbing, electrical.
My biggest one is and you taught me that, and so every time I look into those gas range vent, how many times it happens? It's got just installed, but it's not going anywhere.
Right. Oh. I'm glad to say I don't come across that very often, but yeah. Like on a gas dryer vent.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Ranges, I think I haven't come across too many that weren't.
I was talking about the hood.
Sorry, the hood.
Yeah.
Right.
The vent hood.
Right.
A lot of time it happens, on those houses, like in the townhouses they have.
Yep.
That
they go ahead and do upgrades.
But the vent, they put it there. Mm-hmm. It runs also.
Yes.
But it's not venting anywhere.
No, it's just recirculating.
It's just recirculating, right? So I always pull those out and here's the thing. If there's a way of getting this out, we have to find out.
So you just touched on something I haven't thought of.
Yeah.
And that is, and again, maybe it's just because I've been doing it so long. There's so many things I do automatically.
Correct. It's going to become a second nature.
I can't even remember to tell you there's something to look for.
Second nature, yeah.
Right. So there's another value probably in having a home inspector do your inspection, because I just think of things. Well, I've actually heard it from clients. I never thought to look at that.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Yeah. So many times happen like that.
I should write a list of that.
And that's why, maybe it's a good idea to prepare those lists and check mark these things over here. That's what I usually do. What I wrote it down. I'm just going to make sure. Did I check this? Did I check this? Did I check this? I'm the checklist kind of person.
Right.
So that way I'm not missing anything.
Well, that's a good point too. There's so many different softwares out there for home inspectors. I won't mention the one I use, but it's definitely an industry leader.
Yeah.
So once you get in tune with how to use your software, that's very powerful for a home inspector.
Right.
And it's malleable, so you can edit on the fly and change it. But at the end of the day, I've got mine set up to cover the standards of practice. So I kind of have an electronic checklist.
Yeah.
Because that's something else, post-COVID versus pre-COVID. I tended to just take pictures of everything.
Yeah.
And then I had to spend, 3 hours finishing the report at the end of the day. Well, if I did 2 or 3 inspections in the day, it's a long day.
But I think, you're having the wonderful assistant, who she was helping you. And
well, I had my daughter working with me for a few years, which was great. I do miss that.
Yeah.
But she moved on to better things.
Yeah. But it was helpful.
Sure, it was. Right away. Oh yeah, it made life a lot easier. Yeah. But what I learned, funny enough, what I learned in that, she was doing the inputting.
Correct.
Of the report.
Yeah.
I learned the power, because by the time we left the inspection, 80% of the report was done.
Correct.
So it probably took me well over a year to get to the point where I can inspect and get the data collection at the same time.
Right.
So by collecting the data, that report that I've
that's right.
essentially turned into an extension of myself is my checklist. Right.
Well, it's like I said, home inspection is such a component on that. And the other thing which I like about your services is the warranty which you provide, which not all the
no, it's a bit bigger of a thing in the U.S.
Yeah.
I joined a mastermind group. Almost as when I started my own business. So 10 years now.
Right.
And it was great. So one of the downsides to being a home inspector is a bit of a lone wolf business. There's very, very few multiple inspector firms in Canada.
Yeah.
I can only think of 2. Anyway, so to get in with a group of other like-minded business people, because
for sure,
most of us are entrepreneurs,
as
well as home inspectors, to get into a room for a few days and chat about all the industry, the new things to the industry, as well as just having a few drinks and saying, "Oh, this happened to me, that happened to me," is really powerful. But one of the mastermind groups, they put together this warranty package that we can subscribe to for our clients, And it's huge because, when we do a home inspection, it really is just a snapshot of what the home's condition is for the time.
So just coming back to like when you mentioned warranty, and because I just want my viewers and listeners to understand that part, what that warranties cover, what is it?
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I'm trying to get there. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
So this group put me in touch with the warranty company, and this is something I can offer our buyer clients.
Right.
So we have a 90-day warranty, we have a roof warranty, we have a structural warranty, mold, and sewer. There's a lot, but the gist of it is the 90-day warranty.
Right.
The 90-day warranty starts on the day that I did the inspection. Why? Because that's the day I saw the house.
Right.
And I'm kind of the representative of the warranty company.
Correct.
And this is not simply me just saying, I've got you for 90 days.
Right.
This is a legitimate warranty held with a third party.
Right.
Right. And if you have an issue when you move in, you can file a claim with Residential Warranty Services.
Right.
The 90-day warranty covers all the major components, pretty much, right? So if there's, and it's not about, oh, the inspector missed this, therefore I have a warranty. It's more about, it was in good working order on the day of the inspection. Now I've moved in 2 months later, and I've got a leak under my sink, or the fridge isn't working, something like that.
Yeah.
And I'll be the first to say as well, it's not a grand warranty. It's not. It's not like you bought a new, like when you buy a new car, right, or a new house for that matter. But it's something we can give the client that protects them after the inspection.
For sure.
That really is, it's kind of unheard of.
Yeah. I think like the biggest one I take as the warranty, like especially when you inspecting during winter time, and come summer, something came out like which was not exposed at the winter time.
Yes.
That can be very useful.
Well, it's a good point to talk. We can be limited as to what we can do, right? So there's certain things we can't do in the summertime. An example being, we're not going to run the furnace if the air conditioning's on, right? But a great one, the roof is covered with snow.
Yeah.
Now, the warranty wouldn't cover a new roof. It'll cover a leak, right? So is it a great warranty? Well, no, it's not.
No.
But it's still something that gives you protection on something that couldn't even be inspected. Another example is the sewer guard warranty.
Right.
We don't even inspect the main sewer line because we can't.
Yeah.
But if you move in and it backs up, or if your water main were to burst, I mean, that's thousands of dollars. That's covered.
Right. Well, there's some great things, but I also want to talk about, like, a lot of times people think, even some of the new realtors come out and they ask that question to me, like home inspectors, they don't do all the things. For example, pools, right? Home inspection won't do pools. What other things which home inspector won't check?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Pool is definitely one. Well, that's not true. There are home inspectors out there that are trained to inspect pools. Right. I'm trained to do them. I took the training to do it.
Okay. Yeah.
But I'm not a pool inspector. I don't have the equipment.
Right.
I guess I could.
Yeah.
But I choose not to. There's certain things I think specialists should look at.
Right.
So pools is one of them. Because it's not just looking at the liner or making sure there's no leaks at the filters or at the pumps.
Right.
There's things that a pool inspection company will have equipment to see that they can't see it, but they can detect it. So leak detection, pressure testing of the underground lines, right? So usually if somebody calls me and says, can you do my pool inspection? I say, I can, but here's why you shouldn't hire me for that.
Right.
And here's who you should hire. Septic systems, wells. Now, again, my counterparts in the U.S., they tend to offer, but there's very few in my local area that do it all.
Yeah.
Of course, a big one is fireplaces and wood stoves, getting that wet inspection.
Right.
Because of my area, I'm more of a city inspector.
Right.
I certainly do rural properties. I live rural myself.
Yeah.
But again, I think there's certain things a specialist should do.
A specialist should be.
So getting that wet inspection done. And, for my local area, I usually tell clients, are you going to use your wood-burning stove or your fireplace?
Right.
Very often the answer is no.
No.
So then I say, well, then you don't need a wet inspection, but you might have to sign a waiver because your insurance company will want to make sure you're not going to use it.
For sure. Yeah.
I think those are the ones that come to mind that we don't look at. I mean, there is a good list of things no inspector looks at. Things like cable, telephone,
solar panels.
Absolutely. So, because we can't see the roof with solar panels. Water filtration, water softeners.
Right.
So there's a good list of what we don't look at. I also try to make sure clients are aware of that.
For sure. And that's what the thing, like, when you're doing it and you explaining them, that's a big thing of knowing that who's responsible for what.
Yeah.
Right. If it's thing, and most of these like equipments anyway, like filtration system, everything, it's on the rental most of the time, or even people purchase it like they have some warranties, those kind of things.
Yeah.
But if that causing any issues with the plumbing and everything, right? One is the biggest one, the plumbing with the high-tech plumbing.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Right.
Or
and
galvanized or lead.
Galvanized and everything.
Yeah.
And even like at that one, like, sometimes people get, oh, it's too big a thing, and turn out like it's not such a big thing in some cases, right?
Well, that makes me think of, there's different eras in which homes have been built.
Correct.
Right? So there's certain things that a home may just have because that was the technology of the time. Asbestos is a prime example.
For sure.
Right? Actually, there's something we don't test.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, if I'm in a home built prior to the 1980s, the likelihood of asbestos is very high. So I certainly make clients aware of that as as a public service announcement.
Yeah.
But we can't take samples.
Yeah.
Right.
UFI.
Unless you own the home.
Yeah.
But if you're buying the home, the sellers aren't going to let me cut a patch of their plaster out, so I can send that out for samples. So we have to sometimes make educated assumptions on what the home may have. I guess the point I'm getting at is, if we use galvanized pipe as an example, now the house needs to be replumbed, or best example, knob and tube wiring.
Knob and tube wiring,
right? It's copper, but it doesn't have a ground. It's very old. People have tapped into it because that home's probably had a few families living in it. One of them, I'm sure, was a DIYer at some point. They don't know how to tie into the wire properly. So because it's so old, insurance companies will get, at best, you'll get 60 days to get get enough time. Now the house needs to be rewired. Well, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean the rest of the house is bad, but that's the technology that's in that house because of the time.
Aluminum wiring.
Another one. Although aluminum, you don't have to. All you have to do is really have it thoroughly inspected and make sure there's certain things have been done properly. Right. You certainly don't need to replace the wiring.
Yeah, you have to do like certain.
Having said that, if a client says to me, "Yeah, we're going to gut the house because we want to turn these 2 bedrooms into 1 bedroom, and we want to blow that out," and that, then I might say, "Well, if you're kind of gutting the house, then it'd be pretty cheap to rewire the house."
Correct, for sure.
So then that's a good investment.
Yeah.
Again, perspective.
Yeah, for sure. I think like one of the biggest issue also come out, like, I know you inspect, but also illegal basements. The things which is not done to the fire inspection, everything.
Yeah.
And you always concerned about the railing is missing, safety hazard.
Egress.
You ask, like, it's not only the equipment's not working or something leak or something break in.
Yeah.
But what I like about that, like, you focus on safety from starting from the very entrance, that, you can, people don't think about that, right?
As I touched on earlier, I mean, when I have that first physical meeting with the clients, I want them to be clear. That's what we're focused on: is your safety and your finances.
Right. Well, we have a lot to talk about, and I think we covered a lot about it. And probably why the home inspection is such an important thing. My recommendation is always, like, even you in the market with a bidding war happening, and your home inspection clause is not going to fly, still get the home inspection done, because that will give you peace of mind. Because if you know something need to be damaged, because it will save you a lot of more money, because it might be like in the minor fix sometimes.
Yeah.
And you end up replacing that one because it's going to cost you like thousands of dollars. So spending like a couple $100 to get the home inspection done, I think that's the best investment which you can do when you're buying a house.
Well, again, things changed with COVID.
Yes.
Prior to COVID, I had never done a post-move-in inspection where the buyers have bought the house, they've moved in.
Right.
But because of all the multiple offers and all the people that couldn't get an inspection done in 2020, 2021, and I think even last year I did a couple of them.
Yeah.
I got hired just for due diligence, peace of mind, people that have already moved into their used home.
Yeah.
And I'm fortunate nothing was too significant.
There
was one that needed something, but it
still,
it's just that knowledge is power, right?
Yeah.
you don't want to get comfortable in that used home,
Right.
when there could be something that, hey, if you could deal with it now or next month,
Yeah.
it won't be such a big deal if you wait until it turns into something, significant roof damage or something like that.
And I love that. Like, like a lot of time people know me, like my clients know me, and they want my opinion. What do you think? And I said, well, my thing is like, it's the best thing is to do it, like, to replace it.
Yeah. Deal with it now.
Deal it with right now rather than waiting for a year or two. Yes, like depending upon your finances, if it's not a major thing, because a lot of people going on and they want to save money, they're already paying high interest mortgage anyway, and extra can damage their.
And that's the other thing. If somebody's hiring me to come into the home that they've already bought, it's kind of like my liability is not quite the same.
Yeah,
because they've already bought the home. They're not going to come back to me and say, "Well, I wouldn't have bought this home because," right?
Yeah.
So I'm certainly coming in. I'm still doing a full inspection
for sure,
but because I can be a little more relaxed about it as a business owner.
Yeah.
I charge a bit less.
Yeah. And I know you did it that thing because I even like a first interaction was with you. It was somebody who already bought the purchase,
right?
And they did the PDI, and after that, like, and they were not sure about few things. They got you over there.
Yeah.
And your recommendation for them was, you know what, don't do it right now. Let it settle down. Let's come back in after a year and do the inspection, and then we do it before the year end.
Yeah.
Before the year end.
Well, I always think new houses are new. They're bright and shiny.
Yeah, for sure.
So to have me in the first month or two, I'll find things.
Yeah.
But you still would have to have me come in the 10th or 11th month before the year end, because now the house might have settled.
Yeah.
Things might have happened a bit. So yeah, you could have me out twice, and I'd be happy to take your money twice.
Yeah.
But realistically, why not just have me come out in the 10th, 11th month when it really matters?
No, that was really helpful, and it's helped most of my clients actually. And it's myself, like, when I got checked, and that time I haven't met you, the home inspector, he retired now, and he was pretty good. Like, he did the attic check and says, this is what the recommendation of the attic insulation, but they did only half. So if I had that report and like I took it to them, and they end up putting it like in a full insulation over there.
Right.
And those are things like which you never think about in a new house, right?
Sure.
And it's not going to come on a PDI until you go and measure it and look into that.
Right.
So that was the importance of like a home inspection, which I learned early days, why it's important and how it can help you maintaining your house as well. Thank you so much again, as always, like, full of knowledge and a lot of experience, and we'll definitely look forward, probably get more business.
Well, the market seems to be shifting a bit. So.
Shifting a bit, like, I know your last year was good, but even I know you mentioned like 700 home inspectors are gone out of business.
Yeah.
So forget all those 700 business who people gone, like, come to you. All right. So that's my best wishes for the new year.
Cheers.
Thank you again.
Thanks for having me. It was
Take
great.
care. This is Real Estate Wisdom Podcast, and we always like bringing the industry expert to help you, to provide the insight and wisdom from the ground level. If you haven't yet, please like, subscribe, and share. And don't forget to put the comments in there and give your honest opinion, what you think about these podcasts, what we can do better, and what we're doing great. See you next time. Bye for now. Disclaimer: the information provided in this podcast is for informational purpose only and should not be considered as financial or investment advice. Consult with your professional before making any real estate decisions.